What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be answering the question pretty much a year later as to why I left teaching. And for starters, I just want to say that teachers don't leave because of the students. There are usually 1,000 other things going on within the school or outside of the school that lead to a teacher quitting. And I want to let everybody know, if you are thinking about it, it's not taboo to leave teaching. I think a lot of people have this misconception that you leave teaching because you either couldn't handle it or, you know, you just weren't cut out for it and things like that. And in reality, I loved teaching. I loved teaching. I didn't like any of the other stuff that went with it. I liked grading papers. I liked talking to my students. I liked having them in my class, but everything else outside of that class period was what drove my insanity, my stress, and everything. And I also want to put out there just real quick before everybody, you know, comments or is like, well, you have summers off. How could you be that stressed? Honestly, I think teachers are some of the most stressed people and stressed people in their job because their job doesn't stop. Like, it doesn't stop at 3 o'clock. It doesn't stop at 4 o'clock. And it doesn't stop when I go home. Even if I don't bring homework home to grade, and even during the summertime, teachers' work don't stop because they're constantly thinking about their students, what they could do better. It's always in the back of your mind. Always, always, always. And it's very hard to turn it off. And, you know, people are always like, oh, well, how bad could it possibly be? You know, you get paid to teach, you know, for 9 months, and then you get paid to not be teaching for 3 months of the summer. That's actually a huge misconception. The reality is that we, as teachers, have the option to either take a 9-month paycheck or a 12-month paycheck. And so we may get a paycheck during the summertime, but it's actually it's not actually being paid to teach. It's actually just us spreading out our paychecks so we get a paycheck during those 3 months of summer, which really isn't 3 months of summer if you really look at it. It's really like 2. But anyways, I just wanted to get that out of the way. So let's just get started and let's get into it. I had a great first year of teaching, and I even had a great semester of teaching when COVID happened. So I graduated in December 2019. I took a maternity leave for someone at the high school level, and I was teaching for that whole semester, basically January through the end of the school year. And as we all know, in January of 2020, come March is when COVID and all that sort of stuff happened. And that was a really weird time. But you know what, I honestly, like, I had a good time teaching. The kids that I had were great. I really enjoyed talking to them online. I enjoyed communicating with them. They were great kids. And the ones that I saw at track meets, I still communicated with. They were very good kids. So I had a great, you know, first semester teaching right out of college. And then I got what I thought was essentially my dream job. And I was teaching 8th grade math, middle school. You know, and I really liked math. The teaching itself, like I said, the math part and teaching middle school in general, that was fine. There was no problem with that. It was everything else. So my first year actually went really, really well. Obviously, there were still portions of COVID. I was really liking the way that I was teaching. I felt like I had a good handle with my kids. I could have real life conversations with them. We could talk about things that were going on in the world. We could talk about how you see math outside of the classroom, you know, all that sorts of stuff. So my first year went fairly well. By the time we got to the end of the school year, honestly, I was exhausted. And by the time the second year of school came around, I was dreading going back. I mean, I was dreading it almost as much as I would have been as a student. I was not looking forward to it. And part of the reason is because my husband was traveling for work. And we had just gotten this new house. So like, we had just put a down payment on a house. and, you know, moved into this new to us house, and I was doing renovations. My husband was traveling for work. I wasn't seeing him hardly ever. And so all of it was just really stressful. And on top of it, I was taking my master's, or I was getting my master's, and I was coaching. Now, coaching is something that I absolutely loved. Okay. Coaching has nothing to do with this. I'm just telling you that so you know what I was doing. Everything that I was doing, was it a lot? Yes, it was. And looking back, the only reason why I got my master's was just to try to move me up on the pay scale, because I figured if I was getting paid more for what I was doing and actually being paid, paid just even a little bit more, I felt like I would enjoy my job better, because at least I was getting paid a little bit more. And let me tell you, that did make a bit of difference. You're not getting paid that much more, and it didn't matter. I was so stressed. I was exhausted. I was tired of dealing with parents. That was the biggest thing. And parents have this idea that they can just email teachers whenever they want. They can sit behind their computer and say all mean and nasty things and horrible things to you. And it's super easy for them to just be like, oh, I'm just going to send an email. But they also expect you to email right back, you know, in the middle of a class. And so I was getting really tired of dealing with parents, because I was tired of hearing that I either wasn't doing enough for their kid, or that it's my fault that they're misbehaving, or just anything like that. Because I would send an email home, you know, like, so-and-so was misbehaving in class. Like, you know, could you have a conversation with them since you're their parent? You know, I've had a conversation with them, but, you know, I need a little extra support since you're the parent, right? And basically it was like, well, I'm not dealing with these minor things happening in your classroom. You can take care of that, like all this sort of stuff. And I was like, all right, fine. Then I'm just not emailing parents anymore. They can just get detentions all they want. Like, whatever. Like, I was done at that point. And then we started to have meetings during prep time that were basically completely pointless and honestly not worth it. And anytime kids would get in trouble, like if I were to not get them in trouble, but if I were to write them up because they were doing something disruptive in my class, basically at the end of the day, it was, okay, if these parents are supportive parents, we're telling them, and if they're not, we're not going to, because we don't want to deal with unsupportive parents. That's essentially what was happening. And there was no discipline happening for these kids, because teachers, administration, did not want to deal with these parents. That's a problem. Like, that's such a horrible thing. It became not, you know, child, what did you do in this classroom? Like, why are you behaving this way? To, well, why are you making my child behave this way? Let me tell you, I was a pretty chill teacher. I had a few set of rules that you were supposed to follow, and that was it. And I get, you know, 8th graders. I got middle school. I enjoyed that level. But the disrespect and the amount of misbehaving that was happening was beyond what 8th graders should be doing. I mean, we're talking about dealing with things like kids vaping, drinking, you know, physically harming themselves, all that sort of stuff. And I was just tired of dealing with all this stuff that wasn't being dealt with. Right? Like, I couldn't deal with anything else of it, because I was just the teacher, and it was continuing to happen. So whether or not you caught somebody who literally dropped a vape in front of you, nothing really happened. It was like a slap on the wrist. Like, in my book, that's actually a problem. And that shouldn't be an issue. Like, middle school kids shouldn't have vapes, and yet they were having vapes. And then we were getting emails from parents and phone calls and everything saying basically like, hey, you should probably be checking the bathrooms, because I'm pretty sure my kids are getting high in the bathroom or are vaping in the bathroom. We're like, okay, so now this is our problem. So now not only do I have to teach, but now I also have to be a bathroom monitor, because kids can't go to the bathroom. They can't handle going to the bathroom, or they can't handle doing anything on their own. These are 8th graders. Okay. When I was in 8th grade, I was more than capable of handling quite a few things on my own. And at this point, these kids basically couldn't. Their parents were like, nope, they can't handle it. And so it was just, it was ridiculous. So it was unbelievable things happening. Like, when I went to become a teacher, my thought was, I get to teach. I grade papers. I teach my students. I have great relationships with my students, and I talk to my students about things going on outside of the classroom. Not meeting after meeting after meeting, pointless professional development after pointless professional development, pointless meetings with other teachers that got us literally nowhere because the teachers and I had already communicated about what needed to be done, pointless meetings about things that didn't matter or things that weren't even going on in the school, but we were not paying attention or we were not addressing some of the actual problems going on in the school. And I was like, you know what, I'm done. Like, this was too much stress. I couldn't handle the parents anymore. I was done with them. The disrespect was just unbelievable. And not only, like, it was things like saying, like, you're not doing enough for my kid. Well, you know what? Guess what? I'm doing the absolute most I can for your kid. I guarantee you that. And we are a public school. I am not a private school. I am not a private school tutor. I am not a private teacher. I am none of those things, and I'm going to offer all this extra stuff for your kid. Like, that's not happening. I am a public school teacher. If you don't like it, please go somewhere else. But no, these parents want to get absolutely everything they possibly can out of a teacher, but they also want to blame the teacher for everything. So I was so done with it. I was exhausted. And I was tired of how administration was running things. I was tired of all these bullcrap meetings that we were having that didn't make any sense, that didn't align with anything that we were doing. And the constant fake positivity. I mean, that in itself was horrible. It was like, oh, hey, guess what? Like, we brought donuts in for you on Friday. Like, that's not helpful. And that is not... that's not self-care. They would talk about self-care and make sure you take a personal day if you need one, but trying to take a personal day if you needed one was, I mean, you might as well have just gone to war. Like, it was ridiculous because you were hoping that there was going to be a sub and you were having to make lessons plans. Like, taking a day off is actually harder than actually just going to school and teaching and dealing with everything. And and going to war, you know, that's obviously an exaggeration, but it is so difficult to try to just take a day off for your personal day. Because let me tell you, during that personal day, you're thinking and wondering and checking your email. Do I have an email from the sub? Do I have an email from other teachers? Do I have questions about the homework? Do I have questions about the assignment I assigned? Do I have constantly? And it's like, okay, well, there goes your self-care day. Like, just throw it out the window. And it was just so much fake positivity. And it was like, okay, well, you know, the school year is almost over. Or, you know what, as long as everyone got here, got fed, and got home, like, that counts as a good day. Like, that's a babysitter. If they just needed to come here and be fed and go home, pay me a babysitter's salary then. Because that's apparently what parents thought we were. Or we are sometimes. And this is not all parents. There are definitely very good and very supportive parents out there. But I'm telling you, for the most part, parents are mean, and parents think that their kids are above everything. They don't think their kids do any wrong. At least the couple of years that I was teaching, many of the parents don't think that their kids do anything wrong. And I guarantee you, your kid lied to you 5 times before they walked out the door. Because they're in middle school. That's what they do. And so if you are going to truly believe your adolescent child over an adult who is in charge of them, who's trying to teach them, who is trying to do their best for your kid, I'm out. And so I left. And, you know, there's probably more things that you could unpack and more, like, stress and annoyance and things like that you could unpack from this whole thing, but that's basically the gist of it. How things were being run and the fact that I couldn't just walk into school and teach. I had to deal with 1,000 other things outside of the classroom. And I think that's something that people don't understand, is that I didn't get to go in and just teach. I didn't get to go in and say, okay, here's your math lesson. Here's how it goes. Great questions, grade, done. Like, that's what I thought. That's how teaching, in my opinion, should be. You have good relationships with your students. You talk to them. But all of these extra pointless meetings that don't get anybody anywhere, and not communicating with parents that they need to be supportive of their teachers and back their teachers. And I'm not saying all teachers are perfect. They most definitely are not. But most teachers are trying to do the best for your kid. Yes, you want to advocate for your child, but you should not be nasty and evil and mean to your teachers and just email them and tell them that they are the worst thing ever without actually hearing out what's going on or having an actual meeting. Because that was the other thing. They never wanted to have a meeting. Never. Hardly ever did they want to have a meeting about what their kid was doing if it was that bad. And so, I mean, it was ridiculous. I was done. I was it. And so the other thing is like, I wasn't living with my husband, so that was stressful enough. So, like, then you had this whole other thing of me and my life outside of teaching But honestly, heaven forbid I have a life outside of teaching. I mean, it would, you had to worry about so many other things. You had to worry about always what you were wearing, what you were looking like, how you were acting, how you were talking. You were not allowed to have any other life basically outside of who you are as a teacher. And I know that that's not necessarily true. However, many teachers do feel this way and think that because you never want to influence your students into believing something that you believe. You want to help them develop their own ideas, their own thoughts, their own beliefs and systems, their own opinions. And so many teachers try to continue to stay or save face and be the same person outside of the classroom. And that's extremely difficult because I'm like 3 or 4 different people. Like, you had me as your teacher who loves, accepts, and will challenge you as your teacher and will have conversations with you. You have me as a Christian. You have me who is just like a dog mom. Like, here's Blue. But you have me as a dog mom. You have me as just me. And I felt like I could never just be me. I felt like I always had to pay attention to what I was saying, and all that sort of stuff. No matter how true, not true, arrogant, not arrogant, whatever I was thinking. And so, you know, that in itself was stressful because going to the store, okay, well, if I'm wearing shorts, are they too short? Are my kids going to see me? Is someone from the administration going to see me and say I shouldn't be wearing this out in public because I am a teacher? Do I have any pictures posted on my social media holding alcohol or holding or in a bikini or in a swimsuit that administration wouldn't like? Or, you know, just anything like that. And the list goes on, honestly. But at the end of the day, I was tired of dealing with disrespectful parents, tired of dealing with disrespectful administration, basically. Because even though they weren't necessarily disrespectful in like a physical conversation sense, it was like, I felt like my time was disrespected because I wasn't getting anything out of my time. I had my prep periods that were being taken for stupid meetings, time after school for professional development meetings that were pointless and that applied to nothing, time being taken away from me when I was trying to coach athletes, and all that sort of stuff. So it just, I was just done. It was stressful. And, you know, I think there are schools that do things much better. And I think there are people that handle teaching much better. And I think teaching is almost more of a calling now than it is just a regular job, because it is very stressful, and all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, that's the gist of it. And there's really not much more to it. I know this is a really long video, and I know I've probably repeated a lot of the same stuff, but it was time to be done, because not only did I want to be less stressed and see my husband regularly and actually live with him, but I was also done dealing with disrespectful parents and done dealing with pointless meetings that made no sense, and tired of working from 8 to 3 to then also be worrying from 3 to the next morning, about kids, about students, about homework, about anything. And also being told that my test scores were way too low, even though that wasn't really my fault. We're not supposed to teach to the test, yet they want test scores to be really well. It's just, teaching is not the way it used to be, obviously. Going to school is not the way it used to be. And I think all of technology needs to be taken out of the classrooms, and I think people need to go back to using whiteboards or chalkboards at that. Kids shouldn't be allowed to have their phones or their computers in class. It's too much stimulation for these kids. They can't handle it, obviously. Behavior has been the worst it's ever been. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better. And so electronic devices, I think, just need to be out of schools. I think that would be one of the things that helps. And I think kids being off of social media would also be something that helps. And obviously the number one thing would be kids going to church. But, couldn't say that when I was a teacher because I worked in a public school. And I would have gotten in trouble for it. So, that's that. This is kind of just like a long rant video, but those are basically my thoughts on why I left teaching. And just straight up because I was done with it. So if you're thinking about it and you want to take that leap of faith, I'm here to tell you that it's okay. And there's so many things that you can do outside of teaching that you don't even realize that you could do. I am a stay-at-home wife, so I'm not actually doing anything other than wife duties, which I am so happy about because I get to live as just as a wife and eventually a mom, hopefully. And there are jobs that I could do that would be way less stressful than teaching was. And there are things that I could do having a teaching degree that are outside of education. So if you're scared to take the leap, I'm here to tell you that it's okay. It's not taboo. It's not weird. And eventually you'll probably only have one or two of those teacher friends actually stay in contact with you because your job is replaceable. But you as a person, you and your family, you as a mom, you as a wife, you as a husband, you as whatever you are not replaceable. But your job, your position is easily replaceable. Don't let anybody make you feel like your job's not replaceable, because it is. It is very. Do the things, subscribe, whatever. Have a great rest of your day.